folks. Welcome back to the East Coast Premier Music Talk Show. This is Heard on the X. This segment is sponsored by Mackey Electronics. And don't forget about the big Mackey $1,000 recording gear giveaway that we're going to be doing at the Music Exchange April 9th. Go to richesmusicexchange.com to find out how you win that. Of course, that was Why Can't This Be Love?
Van Halen.
Which was the first single, I think, released, the first Sammy single release, as I remember it. We're going to go to the phones right now, and we're going to bring... Joel, are you there, my friend?
Here I am.
Hi, Joel. Welcome to the Heard on the X radio show. You're here with Rich and Josh, and our special guest, Ross Cat from Back to Back Entertainment's here.
Hi, Joel. How are you?
Excellent.
And we're going to bring one more fella in if we can.
Yeah.
Learning how to...
Hang on, I don't want to blow up these phones. Chris, you there, buddy?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I did it. I think I did it. I got the phones right.
Good job at the 5150.
Chris, didn't I hang up on you one time? I think I hung up on you one time.
Yeah, when we had, it was me and Alex Webster from Cannibal.
Oh, yeah, that was that. Yeah, that was me. That was all me. I just want you to know it wasn't the engineer, Matt. All right, guys, welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about Red, of course, which is the new book that Joel has authored with Sammy Hagar. Correct, Joel?
#1 New York Times bestseller.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Sammy, all praise to Sammy.
Interesting story, a very interesting story. Somewhat controversial in certain ways. A lot of harshness maybe in the book without pulling any punches, But it's Sammy's story, like you had said, and your job was to document it. And I seen an interview where Sammy had said it was really your job. One of your jobs was, because you're such a musicologist, he was able to list what he was listening to at a certain time in his life, and you were able to say, "Oh, that was 1969. That was 1974."
That was one of my gags when Sammy would get like a little vague on where it was. I said, "Well, what was the new Stones album?" He goes, "Oh, Aftermath. Okay, cool. 66 June."
Wow. I know Ross wants to dig right in.
That's so Sammy, because you got to understand, Sammy, for everything else he is always been first and foremost about the music. That's what matters to Sammy.
Yeah, and
correct.
Ross even just said that earlier. He said Sammy's always...
Ross has interviewed Sammy several times, as we had said before, and Ross wanted to jump right in with some questions.
Yeah, one of the funny things is, there's going to be a lot of Van Halen fans from the Roth. They're going to butcher this book. And how did you come about authoring the book with him? Because you've covered Sammy for many years and haven't always been so kind to him in reviewing a lot of his work.
Yeah, Sammy once gave my home phone number out to a Van Halen crowd on the 5150 tour and told them to call me.
Yeah, you just spoiled our surprise. We told our listeners we were going to talk about this surprise. That's right. That's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, no, it was pretty funny. And then, like the next time I saw Sammy was at the Bay Area Music Awards, which was this jive event. And then there was, of course, a little room where if you had a sticker pass, you could go and get cocktails at an exorbitant rate and hang out with all the, the hoi polloi. And it was known as the hospitality suite. Everybody knew it was the hostility suite. And it's crowded like ass to elbow the whole time. And Sammy spies me across the room, and he says, "Joel," and, I'm out of here, excuse me, Joel, excuse me, Joel, I need your new home phone number.
Oh, no. Brutal.
How many phone calls did you
know? I go way back, because when he moved up to San Francisco with the Justice Brothers, the bass player in the Justice Brothers was somebody I knew in college down at UC Riverside. And, in fact, the first guy that Sammy sang with in the book is a Mexican-American blues guitarist named Jesse Yamas. And Jesse Yamas and I were quite close. I knew Jesse very well. He was an enormous talent. Never recorded, never heard, outside of a few people like Sammy and me.
Jesse Yamas, was he from Victorville, California?
He had a music store in
I know Jesse. As a matter of fact, I know the guy that Jesse bought his music store from, Roy Parker. I know both of them.
Well, Jesse's recently deceased. So,
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but, man, that guy could playoff.
He was a monster player, man. You're absolutely right. He was absolutely a monster.
Once again, talking about the long arm of the music exchange.
Yeah, I swear to God, Roy Parker sold him that music store. Yeah.
Tell him where Victorville is.
Victorville, actually, you want to know the best way to understand where Victorville is? Victorville, if you've ever seen Lethal Weapon, the first one, this is the God's honest truth, they meet at Dry Lake to pick up Danny. If the story of that is Danny Glover's daughter gets taken, Mel Gibson's going to come in and save him, blah, 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 blah. They meet at Dry Lake, which is just this desert. That is Victorville, California, where honest to God, Dry Lake's right there. Isn't it, Joel? That's where it's at, right?
Yeah, Victorville's on the way to nowhere, in the middle of nothing, in between nothing and nothing.
Sounds like somewhere Sammy might test out his new cars.
That's where Jesse ended up. He had a guitar store there, and I saw him once later in life, and he was just fabulous. So I knew sort of where Sammy was coming from without having met him until he came up here in San Francisco. And I saw him in the Justice Brothers, and I saw Montrose, and I saw the early incarnations, and my pal Scotty Matthews, who he and I produced the Dick Dale comeback album, Tribal Thunder, later on. But Scotty was the drummer on the Red Sessions in England. And Carter, we all know Carter. Carter was the guy that signed Sammy to Capitol and produced those early Sammy albums, and then later produced the Tina Turner Private Dancer, and is just a fabulous guy. But Carter was Atlantic Records promo man in San Francisco that was going out to lunch on the fact that he wrote Incense and Peppermint for the Strawberry Alarm Clock.
Oh, no kidding. I want to welcome, and Joel, I want to introduce you to Chris Canella. Chris Canella is a good friend of the show. You can hear us still, Chris, right?
Yes, I sure can. How you guys doing?
We're all doing great. This is Chris Canella from Autumn's End, but Chris Canella also works very closely with Eddie Van Halen and EVH Guitars. And I know that when we were talking about doing this show, we had said, hey, do you want to come on? Is there any question that you have for Joel, or you want to just hang for part of the conversation and then throw some stuff in? Is there any?
I just hang out for a little while, man. It's all good.
That's good. And I know that you had actually asked Eddie when the book came out, and Eddie really didn't have anything one way or the other to say about the book, did he?
No, he didn't. I called him up as soon as the book came out. As soon as the Rolling Stone article came out, and I called him up just to kind of get his take on it because. I work with him every day, and between Arizona, going back and forth between Arizona to Scottsdale, to Burbank where he lives, and so I understand his idiosyncrasies and things like that. And I was just wondering how he was taking it because he's a very sweet guy, really sweet. So I just wanted to see how he was hanging with it, and he was just like, "Hey, man, no worries, man. That's what people got to do. Everybody's got to make a living."
Yeah, and once again, now you've brought this up a bunch of times, and we've been together. You've introduced me to Ed quite a few times actually, and you always use the same word. He's a sweet guy, which is different than what you take out of the book.
Not so at all. I gotta beg to differ. In fact, if you were to list the number of adjectives that Sammy used about Eddie, number one adjective would be that exact same word, sweet. That's a word that Sam uses a number of occasions to describe Eddie.
One of the things
as far as Eddie not having any worries about the book, he knows what happened. He was there. He has his own story.
Correct,
and he probably already, there's probably no surprises for him in what Sammy's story is.
Correct. And you're right, he does use the word sweet a lot. I mean, I guess there was a lot of exposing stuff that
you said harsh, earlier, and I don't know that book's harsh. I think it's the sort of sensitive side of Sammy. He's exposing himself. He's vulnerable. He's honest to a fault about himself primarily, but also at everybody else. We were talking before the show. Man, he's worse on his grandfather than
he was. You're right. And you and I had talked about it. He's pretty bad on his grandfather too. But the one thing that he described, I felt perfectly, is, and it's so funny in the book, is the Eddie Van Halen handshake, which is true. He describes very clearly and concisely that he holds your hand and adds a second hand and then kind of nods, and that's the truth. That's the best way to describe when you first meet the guy.
Well, Rich, you seem to have read the book. I'm very pleased with how the book came out. I don't think you can read the book without feeling Sammy was there and that he's saying it the way he saw it.
Well, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I don't think that Sammy's. I don't think he's misrepresenting his thoughts on it at all. Not by any stretch of the imagination. The other thing about the book that I find is it's a very easy read. I think it's a well written book. I mean, it's a book that's.
Thank you.
And you know, Joel, honestly, I am not the world's biggest reader. I got to be honest with you, but the book is a very easy read. I felt
absolutely. Another thing,
it was
Joel,
really important for me to not filter Sammy. And as his co-author, to take what he was telling me and keep it in his language and keep it in his frame of reference, so that the reader would have the experience of having Sammy tell them the story. And whatever editorial skills I bring to the matter are strictly in service of that goal.
And we got to head to a commercial break, and I'm getting hand signals all over the place here. But why don't we go to we'll go to the commercial break, and we're going to come back. Both of you guys can stick around for a little bit.
I'm hanging.
All right, perfect, guys. Stick around, folks. Hurting on the X with Chris Canella and Joel, who just wrote Sammy's book.